State Leadership Conference. You're not right.
I'd like to call to order the Shakopee School Board regular business meeting for March 18, 2024. Tiffany, can you please do the roll?
Valdez.
Here.
Brophy.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Aldridge.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Mohammed. Michelle.
Here.
Aditya.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. We will proceed to the best part of our meetings, our Saber Pride. We'll start with item 3.1, Health Science Academy, CAPS Partner Project Spotlight. With us to present, we have Tiffany Olson, Director of Communications and Strategic Development, Tracy Corney, Health Services Supervisor, and students Whitney, Alexandra, Howie, and Kate.
So I'm going to stand over here because the students should have the spotlight. Tracy and I are just here to support them. So Tracy, our fantastic health services supervisor, we're here to share a glimpse today into the creative work that goes on at the academies of Shakopee. And we could have hundreds of students here. Mr. Brown's here, he knows all the great things that's happening at the high school. We could have this place full for hours, so this is just one spotlight we wanted to share with you today, but the theme around it is students supporting students. So you'll hear that throughout their presentation. We're going to do a little Q&A, and there's a fantastic individual who's not able to be here, in addition to, I believe, one other on your group too, right? Abby Sherlock was is a intern in communication. She collaborated with Tracy and the interns here from Health Science. So you have B&E and Health Science coming together. But tonight we're going to share a little bit of insight again on students helping students.
So to start off, I'm just going to have the students introduce themselves and tell you what their plans are after college or after graduation.
My name is Howie Adam, and after graduation I plan on attending either the U of M or St. Olaf to study biology.
My name is Whitney Allen, and after high school I plan on attending Mankato for nursing.
My name is Alexandra Tagg, and after high school I plan on attending either the University of Wisconsin-Madison or Winona State for nursing under pre-med.
My name is Kate Bogdy, and right now I don't really know where I'm attending for college, but I do know I'm going to be majoring in nursing.
All right. So one of the things that I find the most challenging when I get ready for interns is finding something for them to work on that's meaningful and has purpose and can benefit our district. So one of the ways I come up with ideas is I ask my nurses out there in the buildings, what are they seeing? What kind of trends are they seeing? Are there needs that the students are having that we can help support? And that's kind of how I come up with ideas. But the one thing that always is in every one of their suggestions is the theme of building independence in our students. So it doesn't matter if you're little or if you're a senior, there's always ways that you can become a more independent person. And so that was how we came up with these projects that they worked on.
And each project, we're going to have a little Q&A here, because again, Tracy and I are not the ones that are supposed to be talking for Saber Pride. They have so much fantastic things to say, so we're going to interview them a little bit. But professional skills, I know our CAPS leaders, our academies, teachers, they do a great job of ensuring too, in addition to the agency, that is hopefully built with our students in these projects, that these professional skills are across in what they're doing. Thank you for those that are joining. Come right on in. So what we're going to do first is we are going to talk about a dental project for the first graders. But I feel like if you can see a little bit of it, they pull together. They're actually not in arts and communications, but man, these health science students did some great stuff. So we're going to show you a little snippet, and then we're going to do a quick Q&A.
Say cheese, say cheese, cheese, cheese. Nice. Pink, I want you to write about what
So with that, if one of you want to share a little bit about the dental hygiene project, how many schools you went to, what grade, and help them understand a few snippets that they saw in there.
Yeah, so we went to all 5 of the elementary schools and we gave 22 presentations to all first grade classrooms as a way to just promote independence in oral health and hygiene.
Okay, and why was that important? Why was this a project that you worked with Tracy on?
Because it's really important to create these healthy habits at a young age and be able to just exemplify them and just work on them so that they become a force of habit to work with.
I know when Abby interviewed you, you shared some fun little tidbits about what surprised you the most when you were in the classrooms and having to do this. So you're supporting younger students. What were some of the surprises?
I think what surprised me was how receptive they were, and they were just so excited to learn and just talk to the big kids and be able to just run around through all the stations and be able to work with us.
Awesome. And why do you want to share some of the fun? I know there was an ice cube tray and some floss, and what were some of the projects that they had to do?
So we created stations, and one of the stations was we took ice cube trays and we flipped them over so that they looked like teeth, and then we put food erasers kind of in them, and then we took yarn and we would floss the food out, kind of like flossing your teeth. And then we did a cracker station where they would eat a cracker and then use water to rinse it all out to show them that if you don't have time during the day, at school to brush your teeth, that you can use water to help clean your mouth. And then another one is we printed out a picture of a clip art smile, and then we put it in a plastic sleeve and then drew a dry erase marker as cavities, and then we got toothbrushes and then they would erase the cavities with the toothbrushes.
And what was one of you told me a fun story about how you learned when you have a bunch of first graders in the room, what do you have to make sure you do? I think you told me you had to keep busy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep them engaged.
Yeah, you had to keep them engaged, right? Now the other project.
Right, so in addition to the dental hygiene project, they also worked on one that we're calling the 10 Ds, which is just teaching young kids how to advocate for themselves and when it's okay to go see the nurse and when you really should go see the nurse. And they made a short, quick video.
So this is only a quick 30 seconds of a video that is being completed. And completely impressed. They put a lot, there's a little rhapsody in there. There's great filming. We have a nurse cameo, so you're getting a 30-second snippet. It's a full 2 minutes that you will see in the future. So this is a special screening right here.
Nurse, I'm tired. I do not want to go to that class. Oh, that is not a reason to come see me. Well, I want to try another nurse. I have a song for you. Okay.
In the halls where the children play, sometimes you might not feel okay. So listen up now, don't be shy. Here's a little song about the 10 Ds. Oh my! If your breath is heavy like a gusty breeze, or your temperature's rising like a summer tease, body rush is hearing like a floral burst, don't make it worse, come to see the school nurse.
So what was the most challenging part of putting that video together?
I would say probably singing the song. I never took choir. I never sang anywhere besides my car doors. So I really had to get out of my comfort zone and just not fear embarrassing myself in front of all of you guys.
And how do you think this is going to help our elementary students in the future?
I think it will give them a really good use, a rule of thumb to when to go to the nurse and just feel comfortable, because we took really nice videos with the nurse Sherry at Red Oak, and she was very sweet, and I feel like sometimes people are scared of the school nurse or they go there for the wrong reasons, so I feel like it'll help both ways.
And then lastly, the third project that we worked on was early childhood screenings. They went with Nurse Lindsay at Pearson 2 days a week, and they actually did early childhood screening with our 3- and 4-year-olds.
So if you'd like to give them a round of applause, they're here for Any questions for them at all? want to share that you weren't able to? No? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, great job.
Next on our agenda is item 3.2, winter activities, and we have our activities director, Andy Brown, to present. Welcome.
All right. Good to see everyone. As usual, none of our stuff really lines up neatly in season, so as much as I can give you a recap of some things, if you talk to me 2 weeks from now, we'll have had, we'll have a couple things that I'll tell you about going on, but we'll have robotics off at a regional, and we'll have the spring play. It'll be 2 weeks further into rehearsing, and so we're kind of, there's always a million things happening. One of those seasons that somewhat recently wrapped up in January was the first of 2 esports seasons, and we had a team take second place, our first trophy that we have earned here in the second year of the program, so that was cool. So we found a spot for it in one of the trophy cases in front, so it stands alone, but just the beginning of what we hope is a full case. Alexi Houston is one of the CAPS interns in the activities office, so it's pretty easy to rope him into coming here just so he could give you a quick rundown of the esports experience, tell you what it's like from his perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I also play hockey, so it's kind of like talked about thing of a high school athlete also playing like video games all day, but I do it all the time, and I just thought it was a cool experience to just be able to play for my school. And when I heard about like there was an esports program, I just instantly wanted to get in because I like representing the Sabres, and I think it's just a cool way to get interactive with the school. And I guess placing second isn't where we wanted to be. We wanted to win, but it's definitely the farthest we ever gotten, and we made the state every year, so placing second was fun.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit today about some of the connections that Alexi, rather than just being a thing that he's kind of done virtually and met up with all these people, he got to meet other students within the school and then other students around the metro, so he's made a ton of connections and people that he plays with now. So, you might think kind of the stereotype of sitting alone in the basement or whatever, but through participating in the league, it's a huge way to branch out. And when they do the state tournament, it's at this Wisdom Gaming at the Mall of America, so they actually get a chance to meet live some of the people that they've competed against and things like that. So it's pretty cool. And now you gotta go skate?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. So Ed Rising is one of them that I wanted to mention, kind of just another new club that got off the ground. And we had 7 people go and compete in what's sort of their regional competition, if it is, and they all qualified. All 7 of those qualified for state, and so that's right at the tail end of spring break, if I remember right. I think the last Saturday, kind of rolling into the Monday or something like that. So they'll be competing at state, and it's a lot like your DECA or HOSA or one of those, with just, but the categories are all in education and childhood development kind of things like that. So we've got them. Our DECA team had its standard great showing at the state competition. That picture doesn't just show those who qualified to move on, but that's all 31 of our finalists, which is the largest number we've ever had. Mm-hmm. We typically bring one of the biggest programs in the state, over 100 people competing, and we had 31 in the finals. And then 10 students, and let's see, I think across the categories, because there's a lot of partners there, I think it's 9 categories that they're in, and those students are they'll compete at the International Conference, which is in Los Angeles at the end of April. And so those names pictured there all finished top 3 in their particular category to move on. On the next slide, something that I'm incredibly excited about. If you pay attention to the social media, you perhaps saw this, and maybe tricky to know exactly how big a deal it is, but this culinary club, which started up this year also, and they operate before school on Mondays and Fridays. So imagine the teenagers in your life getting up and going somewhere early to school on a Monday and early on a Friday to practice their stuff. But they went to the state Pro Start competition for the first time ever. None of them had been. The teachers had some familiarity with it, but hadn't taken a competitive team. And then they won. They took first, and so they get to go to nationals. And so we've been furiously making arrangements for that. That shows up at the end of April in Baltimore is where they get to go. And I had seen Heather Bombach had this cart of hardware, trophies and plaques and things like that. And I kind of jokingly said, well, is there anything you didn't win? And she goes, well, and so they actually won 6 out of the 8 prizes that are available at the competition on their way to first place. So they did not win in safety and sanitation or something else. But yeah, so the one individual thing that's in there is Jack Deegan, who's the real tall one in the back row. He took first in sort of like the knife skills judging. So they look at everybody who's out there doing their knife skills, and he won that. So he got a set of professional grade knives out of the deal. So I make sure he knows he can't bring them to school. So but he's there. And just a note about kind of the dedication of educators and the way that a lot of things come together. Last year, we kind of went through a whole bunch of steps to try to get a school van, knowing that there would be moments where this would pay off, where we can get people to things who may not be able to get there otherwise. And that was the case for somebody who really wanted to participate in the culinary club. And so Heather jumped through the hoops to get to be able to drive that school van, and she comes to school early on both of those Fridays and Mondays so that she can grab the van, get over to one of those students' house and bring them back. And so the dedication of an educator, plus the funding that goes in to make some of this stuff work from all the different sources, and just the willingness to do something like buy a van has created an incredible experience for a kid who's now going to Baltimore, who has trouble getting out of her own house early, and now she's going to be able to do that. So that's really exciting. A couple other things that I don't have slides for that are just worth noting. Our fall musical, it takes a while to get the Spotlight Awards back, but we had kind of our heaviest. The paper had the most names on it, I guess, when they send the Spotlight Awards. They kind of have some standard ones that they do, but we've really ramped up in sort of the technical expertise and got a ton of outstandings in that sort of thing. So setting the targets on the acting and singing ones next year. We still haven't gotten the superior as an ensemble, and that's really where they want to be. We have one more thing kicking off that I'm really excited about, which is after a couple fall starts, we've got our fishing club, our tournament fishing team kind of up and running. And they obviously not yet, they're not out on the water or anything, but we've got some high interest in kids. And it's a really tricky thing because the barrier is for every 2 kids, you got to have an adult volunteer with a boat. And so you got to have a boat captain for every 2 kids. But it looks like we're going to be able to field at least 4 and maybe as many as 6 kind of pairs. So they'll get out there and do some tournament fishing, which is really exciting. And kind of like esports, Alexia is kind of the exception as somebody who's really heavily involved in stuff. But esports and fishing club are 2 things that we kind of targeted as here's stuff that likely doesn't have, most of the kids who would sign up for that are not in something else, and I think that was pretty true across the fishing club. 1 or 2 kids who are involved in something else, but a number of kids doing that. So as always, lots of things going on. Next time, hopefully I'll be able to tell you how the robotics team qualified for state, and we'll probably have an update on DECA and HOST is going to state over spring break, and just all sorts of things. Our band's got superior ratings at the large group ensemble. I could keep going for a long time. But I have to leave here and go supervise the Powder Buff volleyball event, a boys volleyball tournament put on by some DECA students. That's fundraising for the Never Shake Minnesota, which is Mr. McNally, who teaches at the high school nonprofit that they started. So they're raising some money for that. So I'll be off and doing that. So there's a fast overview of a whole bunch of good things going on, as always. So.
Great.
Thank you.
For esports, how does the particular game get chosen?
They have like a roster of games, and the advice that I got when we were starting it up was just pick 1 or 2 to focus on, and we said, nope, let's just make them all available. And so we sign kids up, and basically we just kind of administrate the kids sign up, and we sort of just make sure that they get all their ducks in a row and all their paperwork in, get them registered, and then they kind of have an obligation to either play at a scheduled time or meet with their opponent by that scheduled time to set up a time they can play. And so they just play 1 competition a week in whatever game they've chosen. Some of them are individual and some are teams, and they just play once a week through a regular season and then get seeded into a tournament to qualify for state, kind of just like a regular sport does, except they're just all on their devices. Yeah. Yeah. And they actually have like, they have at the final thing at state, they've got like a commentator who streams it online, and he's actually like, the commentator has studied and watched our teams play, so he kind of knows their skills and strategies. So just like a real, you can hunt it down on YouTube and you can see somebody commentating on Alexi and his teammates, just like, you know, they were in the hockey rink or whatever. So yeah, it's pretty neat.
Chair Smith and Mr. Brown, I just know Aditya too, you're representing speech as well, right?
Yeah.
Anything to share, but if Mr. Chair Smith would be willing to hear it?
For speech, we just had our national for the national tournament, National Speech and Debate Association. Just 2 weeks ago, we had our national qualifying tournament, and we managed to get around 3 people into the final round of that tournament, and we managed to get 1 person qualified for our national tournament, which is a really big thing. And then next month we have our official section tournament. Then the week after that we have state. Yeah, those are the big highlights from speech so far. So.
And we're hosting the state speech tournament this year and next year, so April 19th. Do you remember? I think we're on the Saturday, so Shakopee kids will be competing on the 20th on Saturday, I'm pretty sure.
And I'll be there for the state high school.
Right.
Awards.
Yep, hopefully handing them out to a bunch of our kids.
Right.
So we'll
That's
see.
always the best.
Yeah. All right.
Very cool.
Okay. Anything else? All right.
Thanks,
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great stuff, Andy, thank you.
Next on our agenda is item 4, consideration of the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion by Brophy and a second by Aldrich. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is item 5, public comment. This is the time where members of the public can participate in the meeting without being part of the meeting agenda. A member of the public may address the board on an agenda topic or on another topic. We allocate a total of 15 minutes for public comment at this meeting. Each individual speaker may speak for up to 2.5 minutes. The sign up for public comment has been conducted online and in person prior to this evening's meeting. No one has signed up for public comment prior to this evening's meeting. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Next on our agenda is item 6, our consent agenda. As you can see, we have some personnel items, school board minutes, our bills and authorizations, wire report, donations, and scoreboard agreement. Of note in our personnel items is we have 5 people retiring, and we want to thank them for their service to the district. I'm sure they will be recognized at our May event.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
And a motion by Brophy and a second by Valdez. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is an information item, item 7.1, first reading of policies, and we will hand it to our policy committee chair, Chad Johnson.
Thanks. This is our first reading of a handful of policy changes that will be considered for approval on our May 13th meeting. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to read these ahead of time, but just in case, I can give a quick summary of each one and the relevant changes. So the first one, 504, student dress and appearance. We're removing a reference to inappropriate clothing that includes short shorts, skimpy tank tops, other clothing that is not in keeping with community standards. We're removing that because it's quite subjective. Instead of focusing on dress that is substantially disruptive. So that's a much more clear direction to administrators, we think. So if there's a disruption caused or going to be caused by how a student is dressing, those are the relevant changes. There's other detail in the policy, of course. Moving on to student attendance, the change has to do with previously it was strictly prohibited absences for vacations with family or trips to schools or colleges. Those were always considered unexcused. Now they will be excusable at the discretion of administration. Moving on to 410, the family and medical leave policy. This has to do with the changes in state law. We're just striking the part where the employee only qualifies after they've worked for 12 months. So just in accordance with state law, as a lot of these are. The drug, alcohol, and cannabis testing, 416, the relevant changes in that are actually in the attachment. And it's basically as a result of cannabis legalization. There's many specific call-outs that formerly were drug and alcohol and now are drug, alcohol, and cannabis. That's the crux of the changes to that policy. And then the next one, which number is that? 506 for student discipline. The biggest change is near the bottom, talking about the use of exclusionary practices is prohibited. So relatively straightforward stuff. Oh, and the big one, just kind of late breaking, this was added. I'm sure you all saw about the smudging facility being built. And so we're looking at adopting a policy that's modeled after St. Paul's policy regarding smudging and all the details behind that. So are we, this is my first time in this role, so are we entertaining questions at this point, or is it just?
Yeah, open for any questions or discussions?
More detail.
So yeah, if there's no questions, please do go and read these. We'll have a second reading sometime soon, and then a vote to approve them in May.
Thank you, Chad. Next is we come to the action portion of our meeting, item 8.1, discussion of the Juneteenth holiday, and with us to present is our Director of Human Resources, Keith Craig. Welcome, Keith.
Good evening. So in 2023, the legislature passed a law making June 19th, otherwise called Juneteenth, a state holiday. Like a lot of our other holidays that the state proclaims, we can't conduct a business on that day. So we're looking to get you to consider making this an additional holiday for year-round employees, people who work 261 days out of the year. I'd entertain any questions.
Yes, I have a question. If I hear you, what you said people working 200.
Yeah, the people who work year-round.
What about the cultural liaisons?
I don't think all of that group works year-round.
So
it would be people like custodians.
So what the deal is gonna be? What the deal is gonna be? For the cultural liaisons?
Yeah, if some of them may have a contract for fall
They're
summer, but I
typically
don't
on
think so.
220-day contracts.
They have a
They are?
220.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then I don't have a question.
I mean, essentially, when people work during that particular day, and the only group that works are people who work year-round.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the Juneteenth holiday as an additional holiday for year-round employees working 261 days.
Second.
Motion by Peterson and a second by Aldrich. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Next on our agenda is another action item, item 8.2, elementary math curriculum. And with us to present are Nancy Thule, Director of Learning, Teaching and Equity, Jeff Treese, teacher at Jackson, and Luke Meredith, Learning, Teaching and Equity Coach. Welcome.
Hey, good evening, everyone. So we're here to talk a little bit about the pilot that we did in order to determine for next year what will be our new elementary math program. And so Jeff and Luke are going to talk a little bit about what the pilot was like. We had one pilot team for every grade level, so 6 pilot teams. Some of them members are here in the audience that we recognized too towards the end. But we're going to just talk a little bit about our process and how we selected the program, and then just really recognize the number of teachers that were involved in that process, as well as some of our staff within our department that help support teachers through that process.
So a few things have changed since the last time we picked math curriculum. New standards are coming out now, so we've been closely monitoring that. And new research has come out about what the best way to deliver mathematics instruction is. So as I just mentioned, new standards are coming out now, and so we've done a lot of work around just monitoring those, ensuring that the curriculum we pick and the resources we use match the new standards, and that we're still teaching all the new Minnesota standards. And then we've also done a lot of looking into what the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics have released, what they are calling the 8 effective math practices. And so we've looked a lot at what does it look like to be an effective math classroom. And we could get into a lot of detail here, but essentially it comes down to having classrooms be student-centered, not teacher-centered, trying to build on critical thinking, problem solving, making kids real thinkers and learners, not just copiers or memorizers of math. And so we spent a lot of time looking at that in curriculums, but then also trying to learn and practice what that looks like in classrooms too. And so to try to give you a little taste of what that might look and sound like, Jeff is going to show you a little example.
So this is a warm-up that we would do in a 5th grade classroom from a unit that we just got done teaching. So I'll invite you to take a look at these and see if you can figure out which one doesn't belong. So before you go into the cold sweats and you're wondering which one is the one that's not right or doesn't belong, this has been a really cool type of way to start our lessons. It invites students, for one thing, there's no wrong answer here. It invites students to talk about which one doesn't belong as long as they can back it up with evidence from their thinking. So you will get some different answers because some of them are multiplying some different numbers, but you know, kids will say like basic things like, oh, the 2 in the middle don't belong because they're not in color. But then they'll build off of that and they'll be talking about the specific multiplication problem that it's representing or how they're solving it. So it's got those multiple entry points, but also it really invites students to kind of engage in that discourse and be able to prove why their answer is right. And when I put one of these up on the board at the beginning of the year, it was like everyone was scared to say anything. They didn't want to be wrong. And by this point, I put one up and I don't even have to say anything. They're already talking back and forth and trying to figure out what they're thinking and how they can share that. So very cool. We piloted 2 programs. In September and October, we started with Reveal. And then we shifted to November and December, we did Illustrative. Both of the programs really kind of showed that idea of like trying to get students to be more problem solvers and thinkers and offering those multiple entry points. So we had a lot of discussion around both of those. If you could go to the next slide. In those discussions, we had some qualitative teacher feedback, so Luke did a great job and the other coaches kind of meeting with our teams and collecting feedback ongoing throughout our process of piloting those. And then after that, we did some qualitative student feedback. Again, we leaned on our coaches to do some kind of like interviews with students and kind of get their feedback on what they liked. Once we got past which one had the most homework, and then they really kind of got down to the ones that they liked, so that was interesting for sure. And then our last piece was all of the pilot team teachers did some qualitative or quantitative feedback through some surveys. And then after we had collected all that data, we met as a group, our math articulation group, and we ended up choosing illustrative math.
So for next steps, what we'd be doing now is our pilot teams are going to continue to work through the rest of the year on the illustrative math program, because one of the things that they're doing is setting all of our teachers up for success next year, because we actually by unit put together a lot of supporting documents that can really help with that implementation process. And our pilot teams really are sort of the ones going through it first and then sort of figuring out the best ways to do it, and then we can set our rest of our teams up for success. At the end of the presentation, we're going to ask you to take action on the selection of illustrative as our math program. But just for fun, we wanted to make sure you knew who all was involved in this process. So if you look at the next slide, you'll see the teams that were involved. So in sort of that orangey pink, it is the representatives. Some of them are here tonight that are on our math articulation team. Plus we have a special ed rep and some of our math interventionists are on our team as well, but they've been highly involved in all the decision-making process, and then you can see their colleagues that participated in the pilot with them, plus our coaches who provided a variety of support throughout that whole process as well. I just want to point out who they are in the room, because you can look around and see most of them. I said not to be shocked if Tiffany pops up and says, let's take a picture at the end of the presentation. So I don't know if you want to do that first and then we vote on the approval, or how you want to move forward with that. But I do just want to thank them. Not everybody was able to attend. We did invite them. It is incredibly hard to do the pilot work, because you are really kind of going into the unknown. And I don't know, we have a team like Amy's team who's actually going to pilot also the elementary language arts materials. We have a couple of teams, they just like to pilot everything. And Jackson is an example of one of those teams that likes to pilot all the new possibilities, the new curriculum. So.
Would have the other folks who are here introduce themselves?
Yes.
Be recognized.
I'm Amy Rudder, and I'm a kindergarten teacher at Jackson, and obviously piloted the kindergarten material.
Stephanie Maslowski, I'm a third grade teacher at Jackson.
I'm Kelly Shearing, I'm a third grade teacher.
I actually had Michelle and Aditya.
You did really well then.
Jenny Busselman, third grade at Eagle Creek. Monica Miller, learning, teaching, and equity coach.
Shayla Melrose, kindergarten at Jackson.
Erica Casey, kindergarten at Jackson.
And then Kristen gets
Kristen Owens, building principal at Red Oak.
What happened, Samba?
Yeah, you know, what happened is we always try to make sure there's at least one grade level at every building, but unfortunately, right after all the teams had been selected, this would have been almost a year and a half ago, there was a number of things that were impacting that particular team, and they requested to kind of withdraw from the process. And rather than asking everybody else to kind of move around, we just put out an all-call for another fourth grade team, and that's why you don't see SunPath represented. We do have their math intervention person serves on the math committee.
Nancy, I have a question. So this process that you use for math, Is that a similar process for any sort of curriculum that needs to be updated in the district, whether it's reading or the science? I know there's a lot of stuff coming.
So for elementary, for sure, we like to do a pretty significant piloting approach. So I'll use science as an example. That happened right in the middle of COVID, so it took a couple of years to get through it. But we had a group that was sort of leading through the curriculum that we were thinking we were going to adopt. With science, it was a combination of different resources. We do Project Lead the Way launch kits, and then also some amplified units that have been customized by grade level. I know, as you know, Nika Summer will be leading the piloting for English language arts, and they will have a similar process where they will pilot a variety of resources and then really work to prepare that next phase of full implementation. So I would say at elementary, this kind of robust pilot is very common. Right now, I'm working with the secondary math team too, and we're doing more of what I would call unit piloting, but not like a full year piloting. Because the difference is with math teams, we can actually get every math teacher in the district together with us in the summer, because there's like 30 of them. But with the elementary, it's 300 and some teachers. So there's no such thing as having a chance to train or work directly with all of them, other than through our coaches, who will be assigned to work to support all of our grade level teams in all 5 buildings, so next year.
Mr. Chair, if I may. So just a question, you started with the research-based National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. Sounds very much like a peer review, right? Mm-hmm. So these, the 2 curriculum providers, the authors, are, I presume would,
yes.
They were highly recommended or
Yep, so we use Ed Reports because they're pretty nationally recognized for peer review type of work. And that was part of what of our TIC teams were using, because we actually started with looking at 8 different programs and then winnowed down to do like full-on vendor presentations to 4, and then winnowed down to 2 to pilot.
That's exactly what I was going, like how do you how narrow the search in that space?
Mm-hmm. And that's very common that we do it that way.
Thank you.
I'll just say thank you to everybody for their work. I know that it's not easy on top of your day-to-day activities to continue to keep this going and make sure that it's implemented properly in our district. So thank you so much for all your efforts with that, and Nancy too.
Yeah, we even had a Google Meet with the TIC team at 4 o'clock. We've had a lot to talk about, and it's been, I think, for me personally, I think it's one of the best pilots that I've been experienced, at least in multiple districts. I think that our pilot teams have been very dedicated to really trying to figure out the best way to do this. So really appreciate that.
I just have one comment. I always see on social media about people saying, when have I ever used calculus and algebra in my life? And I always respond, you do it with logic, you do it with problem solving, and it teaches you to think. That is what math really is all about. And these standards just are pushing that, because it's easy to memorize, 96 squared or something like that. Well, for some of it, but it's 9216, but we don't need to get into that. But what that did is, when I was bored, I would always try to think of math things, like math games, because I'm weird with numbers. We don't need to get Dale. But it teaches you to think. It's like, how can I think through this in different ways? And life is always about how can I think through things and problem solving. And you learn that with math. So these standards are good that way.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm most excited about is that the new program, we use what's called a math task. That's what Jeff presented tonight. It really is trying to get kids to talk about math, think about math, problem solve, look at all the different ways to solve issues, talk to each other, collaborate with each other, much more of that student-centered approach. I think we've picked a product that's really going to encourage that type of design, because that's how the lessons are designed. So
2 questions. How old is our current math curriculum?
I was hoping that wasn't gonna, it's older than I've been here. So, no, at least 12 plus, maybe. I'm looking at our elementary, maybe
This is
longer.
my 12th year, and it's gonna be
I love seeing all the faces react to that question. Everybody had a reaction.
That was a good answer. That was, again,
You know, and
it's.
I appreciate that, because we, you know, you and I had this conversation as well as, we had the conversation with our teachers as well. You know, obviously literacy is very important. At the time, we didn't know the READ Act was coming, but it's certainly here. But we felt strongly math needed to be before, because it has the most obsolete materials in the district, because both at this elementary and secondary, it's at least 12 plus, maybe 13 or 14, in all honesty. It's somewhere in that range.
And I should have asked you this earlier, Nancy, I apologize for putting you on the spot. And again, this is an enormous undertaking. Team's done great work. You're gonna ask the board for a motion to approve illustrative math. I know you've been working hard, and it's a really interesting kind of a purchasing climate out there, and where people used to sort of give you discounts, they don't, and we're trying to narrow it down. But just kind of an estimated total cost for what we're purchasing before.
Just for elementary, yeah.
Sure, whichever piece you want, yeah.
We're still working through some of the details for the secondary. So elementary, mainly because, and that's why we were meeting via Google Meet, we actually have tried to think outside of how to package it, because it's so expensive, and we've made some decisions about how to prioritize. So that number is probably gonna come in, I don't even tell the Artic team too much about what the numbers are, but a little over 800,000. Our goal was to stay under $1 million for the elementary.
Just, I think, as we're asking you to approve it, and again, it's well thought out, there's a budget for that, but it is, and you think, we've got somewhere 7,700 students, and you've got, lots of things going on in the district, but it's an enormous undertaking that is done with a lot of intentionality, a lot of thought, and again, I applaud the efforts of everybody in the room and everybody else that has helped with this.
I would just say, if we had not prioritized, the full program would have been well over $1 million. But we prioritized what we wanted to make, to allow us to do a few other things that will be part of the purchase, so.
What is the typical cycle for a curriculum like that? I mean, is it 5 years, 10 years?
Well, the state has been interesting in recent years around when they release new standards. So, I mean, the state itself is almost 14 years out from, because the third draft is what's available now. That's why we felt comfortable. Usually when there's a third draft of standards, especially in math, there's not a significant amount of change. But it's going to be going to the legislature for full approval. But a lot of districts, not just us, went ahead and did math because their materials were so sort of obsolete. Typical traditional cycles are somewhere in that range of 8 to hopefully no more than 10. But just because of the cost. This is like for science, math, social studies, and English, just because of the cost of a large-scale adoption in those 4 areas.
Any other questions or comments? Why don't we do a vote first, and then we can do a picture. So entertain motion.
So moved. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Brophy and a second by Aldrich. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I know you mentioned a photo. We don't usually do a photo for this, but we're happy to. We really insist.
I guess I always see Tiffany would always get people together and take one, but you don't have to. I warned them.
I was gonna say, I could tell some looks of like they weren't here at the end of the
Yeah, it's not
day, so-
mandatory. Although I did say it here, so it's in the record, right?
I'd say it's up to you. I'm sure they're not gonna feel bad if we don't take one.
How about we ask them a math question? If they get it wrong, they have to take a picture.
No.
I'll come up with a question.
All right, I'm not seeing anybody get out of their chairs, so
Okay.
that's
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's at 18,000.
20% savings, or if you go from 80 to a million, that's a 25% increase.
I was doing the 20% saving, but I like the way you think, because it teaches you to think.
Next on our agenda is another action item, item 8.3, elementary boundary change, and with us to present is Dr. Redmond.
Yeah, this is exactly what was shared on February 26th, and you remember it was introduced at one point, then we did it as an informational item on February 26th, and now I'm back asking for the board to consider approving this. I would recommend that we do that. Again, it's to shift this area that is beginning, a lot of development and planning, and we expect to be developed, to shift that from the Sunpath boundary to the Red Oak boundary.
Just seems like the most logical thing to do, since Red Oak Schools currently is the lowest in enrollment. Doing this helps that situation. And if future in the yellow, is that yellow?
Kind of tannish?
Let's go with that. It's closer, taking those students to Red Oak from there would be a lot more of a drive than taking them to Sunpath. So being able to move this one section to Red Oak makes the most sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I live across the street practically from Sunpath, and, I'm one of those parents that's an empty nester now in the neighborhood, so I know that there's not a lot of new people coming in to that neighborhood, but it does make a lot of sense to give Red Oak some support from a student standpoint, get more students over there, and we just have to continue to monitor the attendances in other schools as neighborhoods age out.
And just recognize the layout of the city and where the elementary schools are, and just how Red Oak is, you've got that narrow band there on the north side of the cities.
I think would add, and our expected, and we're already seeing it, the expected future growth is predominantly west and southwest. So.
I'll make a motion to approve the elementary boundary change for the undeveloped land that we just discussed along Valley View in Shakopee.
I'll make a second.
Motion by Peterson and a second by Mohammed. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And Dr. Redmond will be presenting our next action item, the APAC response.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk through some of this, and Tiffany, can you actually blow that up just a thank you, perfect. Similar to what we've done in the past, this is the response. I thought we had a really good discussion with our American Indian Parent Advisory Committee recently at a board meeting, and they talked about, hey, we're doing some things, we're working in partnership, and we all agree we can always be better in the future, and lots of good things happening. But this is in the spirit of cooperation, collaboration. If we scroll down, just right there, perfect. Put in bold, this we just pulled right out verbatim from the letter, their non-concurrence letter that they gave us, and so then in italics you can see they would like to see a class that includes Dakota or Ojibwe language and history, and some other pieces there, and then our responses there. We're certainly open to working with them on that request. Maybe we want to get some more details, kind of specifics. What is their vision for that? How does that look? And then very interesting, at our Monday, March 11th, I guess it was only a week ago, board development meeting. We're talking about taking a look at the system, the structures and schedules in our elementary schools. And one of our slides was topics to explore, and on the top left of that, it would be, is that an appropriate thing in our elementaries to do introduction to languages such as Ojibwe, Dakota, Somali, Spanish, etc. And then their second item there was a lot of great, you'll see some of this on the district update, a lot of great publicity and people very excited about the new smudging space, and we've got the policy we're considering. And they were, that was what they were asking for, and we've added the first reading, which we already did earlier this evening, of a new policy, which would be 536, built really off of St. Paul Public Schools had a well-written policy that takes, was it the Clean Indoor Air Act and some other things into consideration. And so we'll have a second reading April 22nd and expect, that would be up for approval then on May 13th. And then APEC said, hey, we got some further recommendations of things that are already being worked on in the district. And so one was working with the American Indian Ed staff and other staff on designated space at the high school dedicated to housing artifacts, supplies, and books related to Native American culture and history. And our responses were, we're happy this work has started, and we, want, if there's need, Justine Vogel, who's our lead teacher of our American Indian programming, if she, if there's needs, have her please reach out to Ray Benton, and certainly we're happy as district leadership and, to kind of find out where and when and how we can support and do that. And then number 2 on there was, it's also essential to address the issue of generational trauma and provide training on tribal nations' history and significance, including the cultural importance of long hair within many Native American communities, other things about that trauma and stuff, and would like to see more in the way of professional development. Our response certainly open to and supportive of learning opportunities for members of our district team that help us to better serve each and every student and their families, and we'll certainly continue to work on building those relationships and seek to find opportunities to do that where appropriate. The third one, increased support and resources for Indian education programming. And again, going back to our vision and priorities and the response, if you scroll down a little bit, the priorities are highlighted there. They're highlighted in our compelling vision. We certainly continuously work to do that, and certainly want to, to continue to do that, and try to make sure that we're offering, the support that we can and learning and growing in these areas. And then we added one that wasn't actually in the formal letter that came up at our conversation when the folks from APEC were presenting, and they were talking about flags, in the commons area of the high school. And that's a topic that we had already discussed, and certainly the recognized American Indian tribal nations, those flags are absolutely welcome in that space. And if they, the same criteria, if they connect to a student, that's already part of that. And certainly just want to share that with this group as part of our response, so that we were, if anything, we're being overly clear about that and kind of continuing to discuss it. And then I'm open to any questions in terms of that response, or alterations or edits, and and then ultimately asking the board to approve that, and then have a space for each of the members of the board to sign that and return it to our APAC group.
Could I add something quick? So we do have a plan for the fall to have our high school social studies team, articulation team to meet, and one of the things that they'll be addressing is that need to meet the requirement for either a Native Studies or language course. We have an intercultural one that has an anchored unit for Native, but this will be a separate course. And I'm actually, Justine and I are meeting with APEC to get some brainstorming about that started yet this year, but then it'll go into articulation with social studies in the fall. So I just thought.
Perfect, glad you're here. I knew we were doing some of that work, but I'm always hesitant to add something, worried I might get some of the details wrong, and I know we've had discussions of that. And again, I don't think they were asking for anything outside of, we're moving in the same directions and working in partnership, and then again, it's always great to hear about that level of communication and detail, and we want that, and we want to develop that deep understanding, and certainly.
So Mike, so a Jibo language will be taught in the school in elementary level?
Well, it's we want to take a look at that. And again, there's a lot of logistical things. There's, we're looking at some things probably at the middle and high school level. And that's even to talk about the specifics and what's available in resources. It's very challenging to find folks that are fluent in a language such as that. And then are they available to teach? What do those things look like? And, and we've had, and again, this is the beginning of this topics to explore with the elementary. But there is pretty good brain research about, the synapses in the brain. Actually, if you don't use them to speak a second language or multiple languages, if you're not using them, they tend to kind of dry up and go away. You're not building those brain connections. And sometimes I think it's roughly the age of 9, 10 years old. So there's some about, is there an introduction to languages like that to try to kind of make sure that, all of our students have that opportunity to begin to develop those skills and even to kind of, in essence, wire their brain, if you will.
The reason I'm asking you, I wish, the Ojibwe language would be taught in schools, like the Japanese, and German. That's what I was coming from.
Yep, and that's what we're taking a look at. It might not be Ojibwe, it could be Dakota.
Yeah.
And then also we've got Spanish and Somali.
American Indian.
Yeah.
Minneapolis public schools, they teach in Somali. And the students take Somali language, and they have qualified teacher teaching the Somali language. Even in the University of Minnesota, they are teaching. So it's good, I think we are the right direction.
Yeah, a lot of work to be done before we get there, but kind of study and learning on our behalf. But
Yeah, I'd just say, fourth year on the board, we go through the concurrence, non-concurrence every year. This year was non-concurrence. But I found that whole presentation actually very positive and really welcomed it was very educational, and you could tell everybody here was very passionate about, continuing to improve the relationship with the district, and so I just had a real positive outcome from that, despite the letter of non-concurrence.
I mean, it was a clear takeaway for me that they had all good things to say, except they're like, okay, we have this one requirement that until that's met, we have to vote this way. I thought that was fair.
Well, I'll make a motion to accept the response to the APEC non-conformance as presented.
I will second.
Motion by Peterson, a second by Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
got a district update. Had a lot of support from the communications department, and very, very appreciative of that. So, lot of things happening. We've got an issue of Education Forward coming soon to a mailbox near you. Lots of great information in there. Lots of great work goes into that, and really appreciate that work. We've got a lot of folks, kind of educators, students in the news, and I know some of these you've heard. I'd rather you hear about it 2 or 3 times than none. And we have a new administrator who's going to take over at the Pearson Early Learning Center, Sarah Moline. Very excited, and also, want to applaud the efforts of Julie Ritter, who is retiring at the end of this school year. Very appreciative of her work in that role previously. And our own Jen Johnson is a semifinalist, one of 27 semifinalists selected from a statewide pool of 159 candidates for Minnesota Teacher of the Year.
Isn't Heather LaRue from Prior Lake, isn't she a Shakopee grad? Didn't her mom teach, didn't her mom teach in the elementary school and retired from the district? could be a different LaRue, but there was a LaRue that taught.
Well, I would think if they're
elementary
doing well, they're likely a
But-
Shakopee grad. That seems to make sense to me.
I wanna
I don't
say
know
that-
for sure.
I don't know, it just rings a bell to me that she is from Shakopee, and I wanna say, maybe she taught in Shakopee for a period of time, but I could be wrong on that piece, but I'm trying to think of what her mom's name was.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll try to find that out. I'm not sure. Again, this is one of those things that just warms my heart. I love this Grow Your Own program. You've got a lot of folks here who are part of our organization who are now on a pathway to, become a licensed teacher. And it's really, really cool to see it happening. Another thing that's really, really cool, and it's nice, I actually, very appreciative of all the efforts that are going, a lot of media attention, people reaching out. This is one of those, this student-led effort to have a smudging space at the high school made possible. We've got, SEEF with the grant. It is just neat to see the leadership of our students, the participation of different groups getting together with the planning and the actual building. And if you haven't seen that video on Care 11, I would really suggest you do that. It's really, really neat that we've got Justine Vogel and Brett Koffold, and then oh boy,
Chantel Brewer.
Thank you, Chantel Brewer, and who's a student. And I thought that from each of their different perspectives, what a powerful synergy there, and bringing a lot of people together. And again, it truly is living that compelling vision, and it truly is. We want each and every kid to be, when they walk through our doors, to feel they belong and to feel this is their school district, and our community. So really cool stuff. And again, when we're seeing Shakopee High School students mentioned in the same sentence as NASA, that's pretty cool too. And we saw other things with all the activities. There's just some really, really cool things happening. But we've got 2 teams that are going to present at the NASA at the Johnson Space Center in Houston in April, and some other cool things going on there. This we learned about, I believe, last school year, this Green Bandana Project, and I just think it's a really cool, really important project. And again, another effort with students supporting students, and we've got our middle and high school students continuing to build that program and make that kind of mental health support available for other students, and I just think that's tremendous. Got an article coming out here via the University of South Florida, their College of Behavioral and Community Sciences, about our Early Learning Center over there at Pearson, and we've heard about their pyramid model, and so getting some recognition there, and that's really, really well deserved as well. And look at this. I mean, who would not want to be part of it? Well, it'd only be one of those two, but who would want to be, part of that? It's crazy. It's that time of year already where we're starting to think about next year, but beginning that process now, accepting applications. If you're a sophomore and you want to be the next student school board member, and join Michelle next year as we say goodbye at the end of this year to Aditya. I love that. I love the red banner and the photo, by the way. That makes my day. We got some events coming up. Kindergarten Roundup this week. 10th grade industry tours this Friday. Again, it's at connecting students with authentic real life learning experiences, and it's just powerful. And again, applaud the efforts of Keith Gray and our Human Resources Department. This Minnesota Educators Career Fair has gone on for quite some time, and was not going to be run this year. And again, I think to have the courage where, to step in and go, hey, let's give it a shot and see if we can't keep this going. And hopefully, we're starting to see some folks signing up, and we're hopeful that it'll be successful. But again, I applaud the efforts. I think in this kind of hiring climate and trying to connect with young folks who are going into, education coming out of the colleges and universities in Minnesota. I'm appreciative that we're willing to try to do things differently than we've done it in the past. And when you do that, you won't always, it's maybe not the safe route. I believe it'll be the successful route, but along the way, you may find some bumps in the road. So really good example of our folks sticking their necks out and going, hey, let's give this a shot. And this is really cool as well, the Passport to Middle School family event, which will be at both of our middle schools on April 16th. And that is it for the district update. It would have been about 15 slides shorter if I was doing it on my own, so thank you, Tiffany. And what do we have, 16 slides total, I think? Yeah.
A lot of exciting things going on.
Yeah, very cool.
Thank you, Dr. Redmond. Next on our agenda is committee reports and other information. We will start with Christy, who was at the Capitol today for MSBA Day at the Capitol. And sounds like a lot of great things are going on.
The room was packed this morning at the Radisson, where there were a couple of committees, representatives there from both the Senate and the House, talking about some of the key bills that are moving through the legislature right now. The Senate has released their omnibus bill for policy already this week, and some interesting things that are in there. Anxiously awaiting the House's version, and that obviously we know things will change between now and the end of the session, which I think is what, May 22nd, I think is the date this year. But I just want to bring you up to speed on a couple of things, just so you're aware, and would love to get some of you to contact our legislators with support or why they shouldn't vote for something, just because it's very, some of these policies are very critical for our schools. So just looking at my notes here, there was a lot of discussion about the READ Act, and the Senate is asking for an additional $100 million to support the READ Act. Whether that happens or not, I'm not sure, but there's just been a lot of discussion on, somebody called it today READ Act 8.0. But just with all the changes and revisions, and when something gets passed, all of a sudden realizing, oh, well, there was something that was missed, or something needs to be remedied, or things like that. But we know that the cost to implement that is significant. And we know that while they did give money for the READ Act in the last legislative session, there was not enough money for the teachers to be paid to go through the training. And so that $100 million is some money that would be used for some of that covering of those costs. So there was a lot of discussion when both panels were asked, what are your priorities? The READ Act came out of everyone's mouths of, we have to fix that and get more funding for that to help our school districts. There was no discussion though about districts that have had their teachers go through training already and whether they would get reimbursed or not. So I think that's a point of contention. But another thing they talked about with the READ Act was a potential reduction in instructional hours so that teachers have that time to go through the training, because obviously is it 40 hours of training they have to go through, Mike, or is it a lot more than that?
Well, it depends which program, and if you're in core, it's somewhere in the neighborhood 60 to 75 hours. And letters, I want to say to do the whole thing was 80 if you were a teacher, then I got 160 if you were going to be a trainer, I think.
Yeah, it's significant.
It's very significant.
Looking at my notes here real quick. There are a couple of things that related to school boards. One of them is a school board vacancy bill that's being discussed right now at the Capitol. And this would be if somebody would leave their seat on the board with less than 2 years left in their term. that the board would, what the bill is asking for is the local board to have the ability to appoint somebody to fill that rest of that term versus having to go out for an election. Because it's, obviously, we know there's a lot of cost associated with it, low voter turnout, and schools are not in the business of running elections. And so hopefully, we need.
You've been lobbying at the Capitol?
I thought it did, when it was being discussed
And it's
today.
currently 12 months, correct? They're talking about.
It's less
than
than 12 months. Yeah, it's a shorter period of time.
Right.
I don't remember what it is, but it's less than 12 months. I think, let's see here, what am I going to say? Yeah, okay, so it's not relevant, but yeah, so that's a big bill that we need some support from every school board member in the state to get this passed, because there's a lot of positive things for boards with that. There was discussion about health standards, statewide health standards for health education. There was discussion about, there's some legislation going through right now about library books and banning of books. And then also some discussion about student journalists, newspapers that are in schools, and students having First Amendment rights. And I think yearbooks have been now removed from that as an amendment to that bill, from what I've understood. But I'm not sure, I haven't seen the bill. And then I think two of the other things that we really need to keep eyes on is the earned safe and sick time labor bill. We know that passed with the last legislative session. There is now some legislation to change part of that. That would include if districts have a pool of banked sick time, that now would apply to the new earned safe and sick time definition of what you can use that for versus the old way you could use it. And some districts, that is causing some little bit of an issue. Some districts have a lot of employees that have a lot of bank time. So that's something to follow as it gets closer. And then just House File, I don't know what the name of this is, but House File 3446 or Senate File 3588 is in regards to unemployment eligibility for workers that go on strike. And so there is a lot of pushback by the school districts on that. And the reason why is because teachers go out on strike, those days have to be made up because they're instructional days. And so that would be tacked on at the end of the school year, and that would be 100% pay for those teachers if we add on. Plus they're getting the, 50% of their pay while they're out on strike. So again, two big bills that could have potential impact on school districts in a negative way, I guess. So, in a nutshell, it was. I don't think there will be any additional funding formula, and there was really no appetite for that. Although the panels that spoke all supported it, but there is nothing from a bill perspective that's out there that was discussed that would be going through because there's no money for it. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, but again, continue to follow MSBA's updates and any sort of advocacy that you can do when they're asking for advocacy, to send emails to our legislators, either Ben Bakeberg, Brad Tappy, or in the Senate, Eric Pratt. So really, really important. And I would encourage our student school board members as well. They really like hearing from students, and so any way that we can get you involved to have a voice in whether it's supporting or not supporting a certain piece of legislation would be very impactful at the state level. So we can keep you in the loop if there's some action that you can take to help get the voice across. So. But I think there were a lot of people there. I think there were well over 100 school board members there, and then I can't remember how many superintendents were there in the essay, because it was a combined effort, so.
Well, thank you
It
for
was
your
good.
effort. Chrissy, it's much appreciated. Some of this resonates with the delegate assembly.
Mhm.
You know, we heard some of those themes there as well. So it's kind of interesting to see it, you know, progress through that process.
Right, right. So that is the update from today, as of noon.
Thank you.
Something's really changed already.
Let's keep going this way.
Going this way. Not so much a committee report, but a colleague of mine, Mr. Aldrich, we participated in an escape room in a box on behalf of our Shakopee community, and there's actually a family event that's planned on the 22nd of March, but they wanted to get some of the kinks out, needed some victims, some participants to rack their brains for about an hour and a half, and it was a blast.
And neither of our teams won.
Yeah.
Still, man, I screwed up. I screwed up the last one. It was
No,
a math thing too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a math problem. There was math involved, there were flashlights involved, but
I
no,
just misread it.
the creativity and.
And that was at Manor Brewery, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, that helped with the, with the thinking process. Well, yeah.
That was a breakout box, right?
Yeah, so it's like a.
Yeah, we used to do this in elementary school,
Did you?
and 6th grade I did one as well. It was really, really fun.
So.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I hope that the people who are going to it on Friday will have as much fun as we did. It's for families, and I was actually, my team was a family, and everybody is interacting, even the student who must have been like 10, she was getting into it, and she was answering stuff too, and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Credit to Emily and the team for putting it together, so that's all I have.
Caroline?
I don't have anything for community engagement. We have an upcoming meeting. Christy, Jeff, and I are doing contract negotiation. So we have a meeting. And then kudos, Christy, I watched you on TV on Saturday.
Oh, you did?
Give all awards. That was awesome.
I wonder how I just wonder how
Yeah.
that looks on TV, because
Yeah.
I never get to see it, so.
Yeah, I was watching all day the basketball game. So
Yeah, there were some awesome games. They were
Some
all
very close.
close games.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Aditya?
I don't have anything to report committee-wise. We have the meeting next week. Besides that, nothing off the top of my head.
Michelle?
Just to put something on our radar, I am one of the ILAS co-presidents, and next Monday we have a fundraiser going on at Culver's in Shakopee, going on from 5 to 9. So if you want a place to grab a bite and support our local club, that would be much appreciated. Culture Fest is about, with it, not including spring break, we're almost like 2 weeks out. So Culture Fest is on April 11th, so I've been preparing as well for that. I'm going to be participating in a dance as well as fashion show for that. What else? The Polar Plunge is next Tuesday. I'm not going to be jumping because I'm a little chicken for that, but I'm raising money currently for that, as is a bunch of clubs throughout the high school are raising money as like a club. And again, just the community engagement meeting next week. And I don't know, but ACT scores come out this Friday, so I'm looking forward to those too.
Good luck.
Will you be up at 12:01?
I will be. I did the same for the AP test, and yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Good luck. Chad?
So you all heard the policy committee update earlier, nothing for community engagement. I'm gonna be our representative for Brightworks. So they have a meeting coming up on April 17th. So that'll be new and interesting. And then the thing that I'm most excited about currently is our Grow Your Own program. So we just interviewed 3 students for their scholarship applications. So that's probably so far the most fun and rewarding thing I've gotten to do as part of school board. So it's really cool.
We had finance and facilities prior to this meeting. Bill was out. You have the general fund spreadsheet in front of you. I just want to point out that the the totals of revenue and expenditures for the year are basically the same that we spent, which is a good thing. That's remarkable, and I've never seen it before in my 5+ years on the board, that it's been that close. And we were just talking about projections going forward that might come up at another time. That's it.
We've got the ongoing SE negotiations and finance meeting tonight. That's it for me. Jim?
I was just gonna go back to the FACS team that is on their way to the Nationals. I had the opportunity to go over and provide them feedback about 3 or 4 weeks ago on a Friday morning early, and if you don't mind curry for breakfast, it was absolutely fantastic, and the presentation and just the hard work that those students and their teachers did was amazing. And if you're ever invited, I would strongly encourage that you attend.
Tiffany?
There's so many great things going on. I will not take it up in this meeting. I'm just doing my best to spread it all out because there's so much good news. We're trying to make sure we can get it out the best way possible.
Thank you. Last word, Dr. Redmond.
I've spoken enough.
Thank you. The upcoming meetings and important dates, got a long list there on the screen. I don't know if there's anything in particular anybody wants to point out on there. There's 20 things on there. So
Already the fourth quarter, unbelievable. Aditya, how do you feel about that?
Very sweet.
All right, so that concludes the regular business. We are going to gavel out and go into a closed session to do an update on SE negotiations. Does anybody have any thing for the good of the board before I do that? All right, thank you. So we will reconvene to close out the regular business meeting after a closed session. So we are adjourned for now.